Right, we are shortly back with another amazing hype Jujutsu Kaisen chapter, and this one grants everyone their long-awaited wish, going back to the fight between Yuji and Sukuna. But yes, unfortunately, it does leave Kenjaku and Yuta on a cliffhanger, and if you need a quick reminder about what happened in the last chapter, it was a whole load of yapping, but it was in order to lower Kenjaku's guard and hide Yuta from delivering a fatal blow that sliced off Kenjaku's head. It is a real shame Takaba died, but potentially in exchange, a major villain was defeated. But Kenjaku did leave an ominous message at the end saying that his will be inherited. And I mean, who cares if it is a cliffhanger, because we have our main character back, and surprisingly, is a lot more powerful than we expected, so be sure to stick to the end as you don't want to miss this fight. Anyway, as always, please like and subscribe, it really helps the small channel grow. I really appreciate all of your support, and it's making my dream come true. Now, getting into the new chapter 244 called the Shinjuku Battle in the Inhuman Demon Realm. And I don't know if those are the official translations, since the final viz comes out on Sunday or Monday, but man, that is a sick name. Jujutsu Kaisen has one of the best naming systems in all of anime. We first see Higuruma and Yuji both facing off against Sukuna in his High-Era form, and we get this awesome three-way face-off. Then we return to a flashback where we see Kusakabe talking to the rest of our heroes before the big fight. He says that for Kenjaku, they need to create a chance with Takaba where Yuta can kill him, and this plan is a precaution for if Gojo loses, and well, Gojo did lose, and that plan pretty much worked out perfectly, so I wonder if any of the other plans are going to work out. He goes on to say that the plan requires Yuta to join the main battle immediately after, and everyone needs to go all out against Sukuna, though he does state that they still need to dedicate who will participate. Kashimo responds, calling everyone idiots, saying that they all need to go out against Sukuna and he's going first. But Kusakabe replies, stating what's the point of someone joining if they're basically just going to be in the way and will get killed, and uses Miwa as an example, saying she made a vow to never use a sword again against her battle with Kenjaku, rendering her the now awakened form of useless Miwa. Kusakabe goes on to further explain that every sorcerer now knows how much Tengen is integrated into the people of Japan. If Sukuna and Kenjaku win, that might not mean they won't be able to survive, but then reminds everyone that if Kenjaku survives, you will be killed as a player. If there's only Sukuna left, they could survive for a bit longer, and Noritoshi jumps in apologizing, saying that he's out. He wants to escape the country with his family, and everyone understands, and Kusakabe says it is a shame since it would be great for him to help. Yuji says that Noritoshi has helped him with many things as well in order to boost his confidence, and jokes saying Choso is bad at teaching, to which Choso gives this surprise Pikachu face at Yuji. Kusakabe goes on to say everyone who has the reverse curse technique and are willing to die, then they should join, and everyone else is out or either here for support. Higuruma then jumps in, saying he's going out after Kashimo, and says he can basically take away Sukuna's curse technique using his domain expansion. Kashimo is pissed at the insinuation he will lose, but Hikari calms him down. Higuruma continues to explain that if the death penalty of his domain expansion is confirmed, then he can fight Sukuna with the Executioner's Sword. Kusakabe is impressed with the idea of using the one-hit kill sword, but says that the seizure and death penalty is uncertain. Yuji then chimes in, saying it will depend on what crimes the judge will choose to convict Sukuna of, and that he exchanged places with Sukuna 3 times, one at the high school, one at the juvenile detention center, and the other in Shibuya. He continues that on those occasions many people were killed, and is continuing to do crazy things now inside Megami. The details of the prosecution will have to be narrowed down, and it's difficult to point out a crime that can get a high probability of the death penalty. Higuruma then summarizes the information they know about Sukuna's crimes. In the high school, he harmed Itadori and attempted to murder Gojo. Then in the detention center, he killed Yuji and attempted to kill Megami. But it could be attempted murder since Itadori did come back to life. And finally, in Shibuya, he killed 2 female students, which were Nanako and Mimiko. He attempted to murder a large number of civilians, murder of Shigemo, and destruction of property. which I'm not gonna lie, that he fucking killed thousands of people in Shibuya. There really shouldn't be any attempted murder at all, it should just be murder. He also mentions that if they assume Megumi is dead, they can charge for murder and obtaining of a corpse. Yuji jumps in saying it was worse at the juvenile detention center. Higuruma then goes on to the topic of the fingers and explains that it might be difficult to prosecute Sukuna's actions if it came from the result of a finger, but could be considered as indirect. And the same could be said for Junpei's mother, which makes Yuji go silent. If you don't remember, basically Junpei's mother was killed by a curse. He was attracted to one of Sukuna's fingers that she found. Higuruma then further explains that in the case of being found guilty, you will be sentenced to 10 to 15 years if you kill one person. For 2 people, you will get life in prison or the death penalty. And if you kill 3, it's basically the death penalty. It would basically be considered as impossible to introduce the verdict of rehabilitation due to how brutal his actions were. And comparing it to the Nagayama criteria, which is the assessment of whether or not a crime is applicable to the death penalty, then Sukuna's actions should lead to the death sentence. Kusakabe says I see, and Miwa is surprised, asking him if he's just saying that, and he's just pretending to get it. And we get this hilarious drawing of Kusakabe angry at Miwa for saying that. I love these kind of jokes, and it's always nice to see them, even after having an entire fight that was basically a comedy sketch. It's just nice to see Gege have fun writing this story. Kusakabe then goes on to say if it's a normal court, Sukuna should get the death penalty, but since the judge separates the crimes individually, then they only really have a 30% chance of achieving the death penalty. He continues saying that the problem is that Sukuna's misdemeanors could overshadow the bad crimes. For example, if someone was stabbed, you would consider that as attempted murder, but the torn clothing from the stab would also be a separate crime considered as property damage. And that there is a chance the judge will prosecute Sukuna's massacre for property damage and trespassing, which will make it even more difficult to convict him of the death penalty. God damn, and I thought this power was OP. I mean, it still is, but I didn't realize just how many stipulations it had for just trying to kill someone. I mean, it kind of makes sense since it's complicated and it's basing itself off of a complicated system, the Japanese legal system. Yuji notes that the judge did something similar with his playing pachinko crime, and Higuruma confirms this, that in Sukuna's case, he could be convicted of those misdemeanors all the way back when Sukuna first took over Yuji. But the real problem might be the crimes from 1000 years ago in the Heian era. Miwa asks if the statute of limitations applies, and Higuruma replies saying the modern law began in the Meiji era and introduced the statute of limitations. Then we get this hilarious back and forth as Higuruma explains the statute of limitations throughout history, and Yuji is thrown back and forth on whether or not the limitations actually apply because the rules are so complicated. But in summary, what we get from this is that Higuruma has no idea if the statute of limitations apply. If the criminal is outside Japan, the limitations will stop, and depending on Sukuna's case before reincarnating, it might not even apply with modern laws. Hikari jumps in asking if Sukuna being dead will count as just being overseas, and he replies with yes. We also find out that the judge is a Shikigami attached to Higuruma's curse technique, so whatever he thinks is possible, the judge will also think is possible. Kusakabe then summarizes the entire in-depth chat they've just had, and says that Sukuna's crimes are countless, and the possibility of choosing a crime among all of them is low. Hikari notes that the use of guilty and seize might be enough, but Higuruma doesn't know if the seizing of Sukuna's technique will apply to the 10 shadows or the shrine. But even if that's the case, it will help them regardless. Yuji, however, jumps in, mentioning that there might in fact be a way that they can give Sukuna the death sentence. And we finally get back to the battle scene where we see Meimei's crows flying through the ruined city towards Sukuna, who seems to destroy the birds with what looks like a lightning strike. Is this something to do with his new weapon, or maybe some other technique to destroy the birds? I'm not too sure. It could be Niue's lightning, but there's also no indication of that. Meimei comments on the fact she knew Bird Strike wouldn't work on guys like Gojo, Kenjaku, and now Sukuna, but is surprised that they all dodged it, and her or someone else ponders if it could do some damage. I'm not too sure who says this, and the next line as well, It could be Higuruma or Yuji maybe on top of the building and they jump down on top of Sukuna, but there's no indication that she herself is close to Sukuna, so if you have any idea who said this, please leave it in the comments below. But anyway, in the next panel, we see Higuruma's gavel slamming into the ground and breaking it up into flying chunks that staggers Sukuna. Yuji rushes in from the side and punches the chunks of debris kicked up by the gavel towards Sukuna, pretty much like what Toji did in the fight against Megumi in the anime. The chunks now broken up and flying towards Sukuna distract him long enough for Higuruma to use a gavel to hook Sukuna's hand, stopping him from using his newly acquired weapon. Itadori's fist comes barging in and it strikes Sukuna in his blocking position. And strangely, Yuji's punch seems to rattle Sukuna and he looks surprised at this. Yuji stands there defiantly and Higuruma calls his name, saying let's start over, and opens his domain, Deadly Sentence on Sukuna. The moment that we've all been waiting for. We then learn what Yuji said back in the flashback when he thought of a way that they can give Sukuna the death penalty. Yuji looks at Higuruma and states it's the third trial. Higuruma then says that they can now properly prosecute Sukuna for the massacre with this trial based off the previous ones. They managed to get around the problem of the random sentencing by now using Yuji in a way to request another retrial but add Sukuna as the co-defendant with the same crime. And even if the trial fails, the crimes can be reduced because of the whole reincarnated issue with Sukuna and Itadori. The trial begins with the same prosecution against Yuji, and the three of them, Sukuna, Yuji and Higuruma, alongside his judge, all stand in a triangle. Higuruma begins by saying Yuji did not commit the murder, it was a confession made falsely due to Yuji's strong sense of responsibility, and then says the real culprit is... And the chapter ends there with the last panel showing Sukuna's horrible smiling face. And this face just tells me he has to have something up his sleeve for this. He was in Yuji's body when he first encountered Higuruma's domain expansion, so he must have come up with something to counter it, just like he did with Gojo's Infinity. And I'm not particularly sure if he can use his own domain expansion or the 10 Shadows, since that may count as violence in Higuruma's domain, where violence isn't permitted. People were saying that he could use Mahoraga, but I don't think Mahoraga is alive anymore because when he was summoned, there was nothing to be voided like in Shibuya. Sukuna had tamed him and summoned him normally. So when Gojo used his Hollow Purple, it more than likely destroyed Mahoraga, like Megumi's Divine Dog back in the Juvenile Detention Center. But his 10 Shadows technique might still be available to him, since Higuruma said he doesn't know if Seize will take both or one of Sukuna's techniques. I guess it might be foreshadowing for something, but I don't know what it is yet. There are a lot of questions left unanswered, and we'll just have to wait until the next chapter. But what I do want to talk about is Yuji's strange new power-up. It's so weird. It's like it's an external weapon similar to Yuta's arm when he fought with Rika, but it's completely part of Yuji, allowing him to fight with what he's best at, his fists and strength. And his power-up is very confusing. There's a lot to talk about, especially how his physical form has changed. Are the claws on his right hand from Sukuna's finger, or something else, since Sukuna didn't have claws in the Heian era? There's a lot of questions and no answers, except for maybe one, which is where he punched Sukuna. It seemed to vibrate him, and even he was almost surprised. Now, there are two things this could be to do with. The first is what Yuji ate, whether or not it's specifically the cursed wounds or something else. And what could be considered as a new body switching ability hinted at in chapter 222, when seemingly Yuji asked Kusakabe to master it already Itadori, completely confusing the fandom. Having Sukuna for so long inside of Yuji means he must have a deep understanding of the soul now, and with an added power up can almost go toe to toe with Sukuna. But I'm just talking about specifically hand to hand. If Sukuna uses his curse technique, Yuji will definitely die. So I think that Higuruma and Yuji will succeed in taking away Sukuna's curse technique, and Yuji is just going to lay hands on him until Sukuna brings something else up from his sleeve inevitably. But please give this video a like. It took a ton of energy just to understand Higuruma's entire domain and almost learning about the whole Japanese legal system just to be able to present it in an understandable way. My brain is numb. And it's coming to the end of this video, and I just wanted to say thank you so much for watching. It makes me really happy you stopped by to watch this video. My channel is steadily growing and I'm amazed at the support I'm getting. It truly makes me happy. Thank you again, please like and subscribe, it really helps me out, and I'll see you in the next video. Okay, see ya!